Hi there, I'm Jennifer Van Alstyne. I'm just going to give everyone a moment to join us. I'm really excited to talk with you today about LinkedIn versus personal websites. This is one of my favorite topics and one that comes up almost every time I meet with someone about personal websites because there really is a difference between the two, and they're both really beneficial for managing your online presence. So we're going to talk about some of those differences today. Before we get started, I want to draw your attention to the chat. Please feel free to say hi, ask me questions. We have a bunch of questions to cover today, but if you have something that I haven't mentioned or that I haven't thought of, please be sure to put it in the chat and we'll talk about it. All right. So the first question that I tend to get is, I want to build a personal website, something that has been on my to-do list for 1, maybe 2 years. What should I do? Should I make a website, or is my LinkedIn okay? And I think it's going to be really different for everyone. That's one of the things I'm excited to talk with you about today. But the thing that I would bring up when in response to that question is you should ask yourself why you haven't gotten to it in the last couple of years. For many people, it's because they're too busy, they have too much on their plate. And that's totally okay. A personal website is not right for everyone, and time is definitely one of those big factors. So, should you build a personal website if it's been on your to-do list and you haven't done it in a while? Hmm, I don't know. It'll depend on how much time and energy you have now. So let's get into some of those differences between LinkedIn and personal websites, and that will help you understand which is best for you. So my first question for you is, do you have a personal website? Are you on LinkedIn? Let me know in the chat. So, the 3 things that really make it difficult for people who want personal websites, but maybe just don't have the time, are that it takes a lot of time to plan your website and to actually create it. So that's kind of like a big chunk of time, usually all at once, although you could do it over time. I actually have a course that teaches you how to create all the content and planning for your personal website. But for most people, that's a big chunk of time that they don't necessarily have. If you feel like you do have that time, that's awesome. And a personal website is a great idea. But there are still things that you need to consider before you take that leap. And one of them is that it's not just the time it takes to create your website. You actually have to update it every year. There's going to be content updates that you're going to want to do. And depending on what type of website host you use, there will also be technical updates. These are things that you're going to have to keep an eye on. You'll be getting email alerts probably to make sure that things like billing is up to date and if there are any security issues. So there is a lot of attention and time that continues after you've already created your website. A lot of people don't quite realize. The other reason that you might not be ready, or a personal website might not be right for you, is about the funds. I tend to recommend a managed WordPress host for your personal website, something like WordPress.com or Bluehost, where they'll take care of things like security for you and regular updates to the WordPress platform. So there are things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to those updates. And having a managed WordPress host, one where they take care of those updates and security for you, it tends to be my top recommendation for professors and scientists because you're so busy. You really don't have time, to drop everything if for some reason your website gets a virus or gets hacked. And so time, energy, continuing time, and also funds. You definitely want to think about those 3 things before you jump into a big website project. But the other part of that question, is my LinkedIn okay? Like, is it okay instead of a personal website? Well, the answer is yes, it's definitely okay, but it only makes sense. It can only really be a good replacement for a personal website if you've updated your LinkedIn profile. There are a lot of sections on LinkedIn where you can fill out more information about yourself and about your work experience or other projects that you've worked on. These are really great ways to highlight your professional experience. There are even places to highlight things like publications or speaking engagements. So I really feel that LinkedIn profiles can be just as dynamic, they can be just as comprehensive as many personal websites, without the same amount of hassle, that time, energy, and funds that goes into it. There is the same perhaps amount of initial time that's taken to set up your profile, or if you haven't updated in a while, to actually go through each section and update it. But once those things are pretty filled out, and there are a lot of ways that LinkedIn and personal websites can work similarly. So we'll get more into that too. All right. Next question is, what is the difference between LinkedIn and personal websites? So there are a few big differences between them. And the first is that one of them you own. If you have a personal website that's somewhere that is hosted not on your university's page, or not on maybe your association's page, as long as you have your own website, that is your property. You own that. You own the intellectual content that you've created there. You own the design. You own your website. Whereas a LinkedIn profile is something that you do not own. You have control over it. You can edit it. But if LinkedIn goes away for some reason in the future, I don't think it will. I'm just saying, social media platforms don't all stick around forever. If LinkedIn goes away eventually, you don't own that information anymore. So that is one thing to consider. A personal website is owned. A LinkedIn profile is something that you're able to use, but is owned by LinkedIn. So social media profiles are also part of a larger kind of community, a larger network of people that you can talk to, that you can interact with, that you can engage with in different ways. A social media profile is a lot different from a personal website in that there are more people. There's a community aspect that will be missing from a personal website. When you have a filled out LinkedIn profile, it means you can connect with a lot of people. You can connect with people in your industry. You can connect with publishers, editors, grant funders. There's so many opportunities for people to connect with on LinkedIn that you probably wouldn't necessarily be able to connect with in a natural way with your personal website. Now, they may find your website, they may engage with it, they may browse it, but that's not the same as sending a connection request. That's not something that you could do with a website. So that networking aspect is actually really important. And one of the big reasons why LinkedIn can be really preferable for a lot of professors and scientists. Networking is so important. And the thing that matters about social media, and when you think about like what social media platforms that you're on, LinkedIn is one that is more public, like Twitter or Facebook. Like these are more public social media platforms in that they're meant for a broader audience. They have a lot of users who are already signed up and using those platforms. And it means you can reach a lot of people at once and a wide breadth of people. If you're on Academia.edu or ResearchGate, ORCiD, these are all awesome profiles to have, but they're very research based and it's going to be a limited audience. So I like LinkedIn because it reaches so many people, really gives you opportunity to network in the way it was really meant to be. With people in policy, with people in government, with people in the publishing industry, with the news media. There's so many people you can reach on LinkedIn. Okay, next question. What are the best benefits to having a LinkedIn profile? Well, there are so many benefits to having a LinkedIn profile. And the first one is just networking. The ability to actually reach people, to connect with them, and to be able to message them. It's really nice. I mean, think about it this way, like when you have a professor or a colleague that you'd like to get in touch with, I think that a lot of people feel that email is the best form of communication. But when you don't know someone that well, when maybe you haven't met them before, or you're going to be meeting them maybe at a conference in the future, having a LinkedIn profile is going to give you a little bit of information that, an email just wouldn't. A LinkedIn profile will give you a little bit about their research, maybe a little bit about their educational history and work experience. It might tell you projects that they're working on. And it also will direct you to the forms of communication that they most prefer. LinkedIn is really helpful as a tool in networking because it gives us a little bit of information, helps us understand ways in which we might connect. Now, that's one of the things that I love about personal websites for other people. It's a benefit that other people get when they visit our personal websites. Here's an example. When I first created my personal website, I didn't think anyone was going to come visit it. I put up some of my poetry publications, I put up a little bio, and then I was surprised 6 months later that like hundreds of people had come to visit my website. I didn't think of myself as a particularly well-known poet, didn't think of my research as anything particularly noteworthy at the time. And I was in grad school, like I had a lot of imposter syndrome. But you see, people were still coming to visit my website. And when I chatted with people at conferences, they were like, oh, it was so nice because you had, your little headshot up and got to learn a little bit about you. I recognized you when you came in the room. And so these were benefits that a personal website can bring for other people. It makes other people more comfortable reaching out to us. LinkedIn can be similar in that when other people visit your profile, it makes them more able to understand how that connection can work for both of you. If they're interested in something that you're doing and you're interested in something that they're doing, it makes it much more likely that a collaboration or long-term connection can develop. All right, what else? Oh, LinkedIn also allows you to share articles and posts, whereas personal websites allow you to share pages and posts. So these are a little bit different. When it comes to the social media platform LinkedIn, you can share your own content that is associated with your profile. You can write shorter social media posts that are meant for your connections. They can see it in a feed, very much like Twitter or Facebook. Now, a lot of people didn't used to use this feature, and especially professors and researchers. Like, what am I going to say? This is a business audience. That's the kind of thing I hear all of the time. But the people that you will be connected to on LinkedIn are going to be people in your field. They're going to be people who are, interested in your research or who might be interested in publishing your book. So there are reasons why you should consider posting on LinkedIn with one of those little social media posts. LinkedIn also offers the opportunity to write longer articles. And actually, this is one of the main reasons why LinkedIn is such a great alternative to a personal website. A lot of people who find they want personal websites think that they want to blog, but they're not sure exactly how much they want to say or how often or what they want to write. They're not sure if they want to write about one topic or many. And I think these are all valid questions. I had Dr. Chris Cloney on to talk about blogging, especially for grad school. He came on my show and we talked all about that. And he said that you can write about all of those things with a blog, you just have to start. But when we also consider all of that time, that energy, and that attention that goes into managing a personal website, what happens if you want to blog, if you want to write articles, but you don't also want to manage a personal website? I think that happens to a lot of people. And LinkedIn is a great answer. LinkedIn allows you to publish longer articles, long form articles, ones that you can embed images or videos and other types of media into, that you can share across social media, that you can share just with a link via email. There's a lot of ways that you can use LinkedIn articles for the same purpose as a personal blog. This is especially great for graduate students and professors who may not be able to publish on a really consistent or regular basis. A LinkedIn article is something that you can write on LinkedIn, but that can be shared elsewhere. So there are so many opportunities to show different ways in which a LinkedIn profile can be dynamic, like a website, and that article feature is definitely one of them. All right, what else? The other thing is definitely the invitation to connect. That's something that I want to note as well. On a blog, people are interacting with you. They're interacting with your content in that they are seeing you, but you're not necessarily seeing them unless you have some kind of crazy analytics setup. You're not going to know who comes to your website. And that means that there's not necessarily a two-way street there. Unless they contact you, you won't really have a way of understanding if they're interested in talking more unless they reach out. And to be honest, a lot of people aren't really comfortable being the first to reach out or reaching out without a specific reason. I love LinkedIn because it's honestly a great way to connect with people who you just don't necessarily have something to talk about right this second, but you think that they'd be awesome to talk to in the future, or you want to see more about their work, or you want to follow their research. LinkedIn is a great way to do that. When you have a filled out profile, when you have, put in your bio, you put in your work experience, you put in your publications, when you filled out that education section and you feel like that profile represents you, and you connect with other people, you send out a connection request to someone you admire or to someone who you'd like to get to know, it can make a huge difference. It feels really validating when they accept you. They go, they visit your profile, they read it, and then they decide if you might be something that they want to connect with too. Oftentimes the answer is yes, because you connected with someone in your field and they see that you're in their field. That makes it really easy to create a potential long-term connection in the future. It means that they'll be able to see your profile, but it also means that they'll be able to see anything you post in the future. And it means that you can message them or they can message you through LinkedIn's little chat feature. And I think that that kind of social connection, that helpfulness for actually facilitating conversation can make a huge difference on LinkedIn. It's one of the reasons I tend to recommend LinkedIn for most people. I mean, I love personal websites. I love designing them. I love working one-on-one with people, and I work with research centers and research labs on designing their websites. It's something I enjoy doing, but I know that it's not right for everyone. I know that if you don't have that time and attention, even later on, it's not going to make sense for you in the long run. LinkedIn can. LinkedIn can really work for everyone. Whether you have time to post or to write articles or not, having that filled out profile makes a huge difference. Even if you only update your LinkedIn profile once a year, it can be just as dynamic as a personal website. All right, next question. How do people find your LinkedIn profile? That's a good question. So, most of the time, people find your LinkedIn profile through Google. LinkedIn is really well crawled by search engine crawlers. They're little bots essentially that go into all of the websites and they find all the information, content, and they help map it so that search engines can provide better results. LinkedIn is a website that's crawled really often by Google. So Google will show your profile pretty high in those search results because when people click on it, it tends to be the information they're looking for. If they're looking for information that's just like a little bit about you, your bio's there, your headline's there, your education and work experience is there. So it's a pretty relevant result when it comes to your name. That's a great reason why having a LinkedIn profile can help you reach a broader audience than just that Academia.edu or ResearchGate. Because it shows up so high in the search results, because the format is friendly for people beyond, beyond academia, beyond science, it makes it more approachable. It makes it more friendly for a wider audience. So people mostly will find your LinkedIn profile through Google search results, but that's not the only way they can find it. I tend to recommend including it in your email signature, putting it on your CV. So there are a lot of ways that people could find your LinkedIn profile. And of course, they can get on LinkedIn themselves and search. All right, next question. Ooh, this is a good one. Which is better for graduate students going on the job market, LinkedIn or personal websites? I think that you know the answer to this one, but the answer, of course, is LinkedIn. For graduate students, having a personal website could be really beneficial for people who are going into website design, for people who are going into content writing, for people who need a really dynamic visual portfolio. So that's something where you're going to be showing people your work through this particular means. A personal website will be beneficial for that. And so if you are in one of those fields, having a personal website could be beneficial for you when you're in graduate school. There's obviously a lot of reasons, but particularly focused on the job market, a LinkedIn profile is going to be much more important. Having a LinkedIn profile is really important when you're going on the job market. Honestly, I would say that it's necessary. Most employers will want to look at your LinkedIn profile probably before interviewing you and certainly before hiring you. They want to see not just the experience that you've shared on your resume, but they also want to see that that experience matches what you share online. So there are a lot of people who don't get callbacks for interviews because their resume and their LinkedIn profile don't match up. So there are a lot of reasons when you're going on the job market why having a LinkedIn profile is most important for graduate students. Networking is the other reason why it's super important. Informational interviews, which you can learn about a lot more from my live conversation with Dr. Jennifer Polk, who joined me last year here on the Social Academic YouTube channel. I'll be sure to drop that link in the comments after this chat. Informational interviews are when you get to talk with someone. Maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's someone who's in a field you're interested in. You ask them to have a conversation where you can ask them some questions about their work, about their experience, and about what their skills are. There's all sorts of things that you can ask in an informational interview, but it's really to help you understand their role or their experience better. Informational interviews are very important for graduate students. It will help you understand what interviewers are looking for when it comes to applying to those particular roles. It will help you understand how your skills fit into a particular aspect. And it also helps you, kind of steer away from jobs that aren't going to be a right fit. My fiance Matthew was on the job market, last year, and he did a bunch of informational interviews, like a ton of them, and he learned so much from them. It took him a while to understand how everything fit in together, but the informational interviews themselves were beneficial. And he got a lot of those through LinkedIn or finding people through LinkedIn who he then reached out to via email. So there are so many ways that LinkedIn is beneficial for graduate students on the job market. And the two that I brought up today were not even the most important. The most important is that LinkedIn is a great way to apply for jobs. It's not the only way, but it's helpful because not only can you see the company, you can visit the company page, you can actually see from the company page who the other employees of the company are, people you could potentially reach out for informational interviews before you apply, or if it's a company you'd like to work for in the future. So LinkedIn is a dynamic tool when it comes to that job search. So you should start, doing it early. Ooh, graduate students, one tip, this is like a pro tip. When you are headed on the job market, it's a great idea to use LinkedIn recommendations. Endorsements for skills have been really popular for a long time, but they've kind of fallen out of practice. The thing that is really effective is a LinkedIn recommendation. You can ask your professor or a supervisor to write a short little recommendation about you, maybe 3 to 5 sentences, and that's something that you can actually ask them to do on your LinkedIn profile. This is a great way to have kind of social proof about your skills, about your work ethic. Maybe those recommendations aren't going to be the direct thing that, tells your, future employer exactly what skills you have, but it's going to show, how friendly you are or what good research you do. So there are different aspects that can really play out in LinkedIn recommendations that feel much more impactful than those kind of skill endorsements. Oh, let me get a drink. All right. Next question is, can I highlight my research and teaching on LinkedIn? So there are some ways that websites are really more dynamic when it comes to highlighting these things, because it allows you more space and like bigger font size, and allows you to have a little bit more information. But LinkedIn can still be super dynamic when it comes to sharing your research and your teaching on your profile. On LinkedIn, in your work experience section, you can include additional projects, links, and media to that particular entry. And so that can make it really helpful when you want to share more information about a particular role. And teaching is probably one of the roles that you would have under your work experience. So for your teaching, you can include descriptive sentences that showcase what your teaching entails. But the media section, where you can add those links, where you can add maybe a sample syllabi or a copy of your CV. You could add, a sample student assignment. So there are still opportunities to make a teaching portfolio on your LinkedIn profile. So that's one way to do it, adding media. Another way to highlight things like your research on your LinkedIn profile are to use the project section. There's a section on LinkedIn. It's below your work experience, it's below your education, and it's all about highlighting different projects, different awards and honors and publications. So this is a part of your LinkedIn profile a lot of people don't utilize, but I really recommend it for researchers, for scientists, for professors. You do a lot of service, you do a lot of publishing, you do a lot of research talks and presentations, and this is the best section to highlight that. So I do recommend using that section for highlighting your research. The other place that you can do this is with your featured media section. It's right towards the top of your profile. And this is a way that you can highlight maybe your faculty profile. You could highlight a recent news article about your work. And you can also pin any posts that you do. So if you let's say you had a tweet and you tweeted about your research and a bunch of people were commenting on it, or it just performed well, then you can copy the link to that tweet and actually add it to your LinkedIn featured media section. And when people click on it, they'll be able to read your tweet and read all of that information. So use those media sections to add kind of more dynamic materials that can help support your profile. And definitely take advantage of the project section to highlight things like publications, talks, and other types of service. All right. Oh, this is a good question. If I have a personal website, should I also be on LinkedIn? And my answer is yes. I really think that every professor, researcher, scientist, graduate student should have a LinkedIn profile. Having a LinkedIn profile makes a huge difference when it comes to the public finding you, when it comes to really reaching out to more general publishers, editors. It can really make a difference when trying to reach public policy people. So there's so many people out there that maybe we don't necessarily think of in the academy right off the bat as people we could connect with on LinkedIn. But they're already there. I mean, most people in the professional world are on LinkedIn or have a profile, even if they don't use it. So that's why it can be really important to utilize. Now, if you already use maybe Twitter, if you're already on another social media platform a lot, I wouldn't recommend spending a ton of time on LinkedIn unless you enjoy it. Don't post or write the articles if that's not something that you're going to find beneficial. But having a filled out profile, making sure that your contact information is up to date and that people can get in touch with you if they want, yes, I definitely recommend that. If you have a personal website, I do recommend also having a LinkedIn. All right. What are some benefits you get from a personal website that you don't get from LinkedIn? That's great. So the first one is definitely the look and feel. A LinkedIn profile is very static. You can only change the content that you're sharing within their particular form. A personal website is something you can design, that you can make it look exactly how you want using the colors and fonts that you want. So there's a lot more that you can do with it in terms of aesthetics and in terms of how you want people to find and experience the information you share. There is also the opportunity for better or more written content on a personal website than on LinkedIn. LinkedIn kind of limits your form to, shorter amounts of information and, not overwhelming people with a lot of dense words, I would say. But in your personal website, you can have a research page, you can have research projects page, you could have a teaching portfolio, you could have a whole page dedicated to sample assignments or syllabi. So there are so many opportunities to just really expand how much information you're sharing on personal websites that you wouldn't have the same opportunity on LinkedIn. The other thing is that it is less overwhelming for visitors oftentimes. When you go to a personal website that's well designed, you're seeing maybe a bio, and then you can click on more pages to learn more information. You can discover things kind of as it makes sense for you or as you're interested in it. LinkedIn profile is very static. There's only one option for how you present information and the order in which that information is presented. So LinkedIn, you don't have quite as much control over that. And I do find that LinkedIn profiles that are really, really filled out are awesome. But if that same information was presented in a personal website, it would definitely be less overwhelming for people who are visiting the site. All right. Personal websites are also more friendly for research-based audiences. So people who are looking for your publications, they're not going to want to go into the project section of your LinkedIn profile and hunt it down. They're definitely going to prefer, going to a personal website and seeing a publications page. It makes it really easy for them to find what they're looking for. So I do find that personal websites are the better option if your main goal is to, share your research with more researchers. Now, the best thing is, of course, once you do that, it shares it with many more people with that because a personal website is public. So it still has the same public reach as LinkedIn does, which I love. But it is, I would say, friendlier for researchers and for other professors. All right. What about other research, academic, social networking profiles like Academia.edu, ResearchGate, and ORCiD? So all of those, Academia.edu, ResearchGate, and ORCiD, they're highly recommended for people who publish. If you're publishing peer-reviewed articles, if you're publishing monographs, you want to be on probably all of those, Academia.edu, ResearchGate, ORCiD. There are definitely others, some more field specific. So I do recommend you be on there because there are researchers who find articles that way. It's a great way for researchers to specifically look at publications. Usually allows those titles and journal information to be searched within that database. And so that makes it a lot easier for people to get access to those materials, especially if it is behind a paywall elsewhere. So you should have an Academia.edu, ResearchGate, ORCiD, Google Scholar profile if you are publishing, and those should be updated once a year. But LinkedIn and websites reach a far wider audience. They reach so many more people and they show up high in those Google search results because they're going to be relevant for a lot of the people searching, not just the people in your field, but other colleagues at your university, administrators, students. Let's see, alumni, former students that you've had, other researchers in your field, journal article editors. I don't know, there's just so many people out there that aren't necessarily going to be searching a ResearchGate profile that are happy to browse a LinkedIn profile or a personal website. So they're much friendlier for a wider audience. They tend to have less jargon. They tend to be a little bit less dense than, say, an ORCiD profile. And so it is easier to read. It's easier to find the information people are looking for. All right. Next question is, how can I share my LinkedIn profile or website once it's ready? There are a lot of ways to share these. And so I do recommend, again, your email signature. Putting it in there really allows people to connect with you or to visit your page if they want to. It doesn't ask them to or force them to, it just gives them the opportunity. So I love including LinkedIn and a personal website in your email signature. You can also include it in your social media bio. If you have a personal website, I recommend including that link. And if you have a LinkedIn profile, but not a personal website, I recommend including your LinkedIn link. That's because once people get to your personal website, you'll probably have a social media menu that includes LinkedIn in there. So people will be able to click right on your LinkedIn profile from your personal website. But if you don't have a personal website, that's totally okay. Dropping your LinkedIn URL into where your website is will still allow people to connect with you in the same way. And actually, you might even get more connection requests when you start doing that, especially if you are active on Twitter or Instagram. So there are a lot of ways to connect with people on LinkedIn from other social media profiles, and that is one of them. Um, you should also share your LinkedIn profile or your personal website link in any written bios that you have. So you share bios for your department, for publications, for events. There are a lot of reasons why you might have to write a bio and share it with people. Now, the audience of a bio is generally the public. Sometimes it's just the attendees of a particular event, but oftentimes it's the public. So I tend to recommend including a sentence that says, connect with me on LinkedIn or visit my personal website that is hyperlinked to that link. Now, not everyone will be able to include that, especially if this is for print, but it is something that I recommend you include because sometimes they'll share it on social media or they'll share it on the website anyway. So definitely include that whenever you are asked for a bio and allow them to tell you if it's not something that they can do. All right. 2 more questions. Let's see. What is the most important thing you should share on your website or LinkedIn profile? That is a great question. The most important thing that you can put on your website or your LinkedIn profile is your bio. I know that a lot of people like to set their personal websites to their blog page, like as their homepage, so that when you come to the website, you see latest posts. But the truth is, when most people visit a personal website, they want to learn a little bit more about you. It's not that they don't want to read the articles that you're writing, the blog posts that you're sharing. It's that they need to know a little bit about you first. Now, it's a really easy click to get into those blog posts from a bio, but having a bio page as your front page on a personal website is my top recommendation. Similarly, the summary section of your LinkedIn profile might be called the About section now, is the place for your bio. This is so important because a lot of people want more information than what's included in your LinkedIn headline. They want to know more about you. And I don't recommend using your standard academic bio for either of these places, not on your personal website and not on your LinkedIn profile. These are bios that are meant to have actions involved. By that, I mean you're speaking to people directly who are visiting your profile. You want to direct them to places that are most important for you, and you want to let them know how you most preferred to be contacted. If you have resources to share, that's something you want to include too. These bios for your personal website and for your LinkedIn profile are really the most important thing you can include because this is how people will get to know you. And it's how people will decide if they want to continue learning more about you by visiting more pages on your website or by continuing to scroll down to learn more information about you in your LinkedIn profile. Having a dynamic bio, one that's friendly and approachable, one that doesn't use language a general audience might not understand, can be so beneficial. So I definitely recommend you spend time composing your bio or reach out to me. I love working with professors on bios. All right, next question. How much of your personal life should you share, like hobbies and interests, on your website or your LinkedIn profile? Hmm, that's a great question, and one I probably wouldn't have thought of if you hadn't brought it up. Personal life, hobbies and interests can be so important to share on your LinkedIn profile or website. You actually shouldn't hide them. The things that interest you, your hobbies, what you like to do in your free time, volunteering, all of these things are something that can help people connect with you further. Now, if you have a ton of hobbies, maybe you just want to pick 2 or 3, but there are places on your LinkedIn profile to include hobbies and volunteering, and there are opportunities on your personal website to talk about these as well. So the first place that you might want to mention these is in your bio. When people read your bio to learn a little bit about you, they are definitely looking for the kind of media information like where you work or what your research is on, what your specialty is. Sure, that is very true. But they're also looking to get to know you a little bit. So if you would like to share a little bit more information about your personal life or about your hobbies or interests, go right ahead. I mean, on my LinkedIn profile, I definitely say that I'm moving to San Diego. Well, now it's in about a week, but I've had it up for a couple months. I'm really excited about moving to San Diego. I think I had a little smiley face in there. And I had a few messages from people saying, oh, good luck on your move. It's exciting you're moving to San Diego. So people see this and they still relate to it or connect with it in some way. Your personal website is similar. You can include hobbies or interests in your bio. People tend to do that in the last couple of sentences, which is totally fine. And if you have a hobby or interest that's really big, it's like something that you do actually want to share more of with the world. Let's say you're a photographer and you would like to share your photography with more people. That's something that you could do on your personal website. And if you have some kind of online portfolio that's hosted elsewhere, or maybe an album you'd like to share, that's a link that you could share as a dynamic media on your LinkedIn profile. So there are lots of ways to highlight your hobbies or interests. But the thing I want you to get from listening to me talk about this is that you should feel open to it. You should feel free to do it. Like you shouldn't feel like you have to hide your hobbies or you have to hide your interests because LinkedIn is a professional network. That's really not what it's about. I mean, when Matthew was going through interviews, someone, loved that he was interested in birds. Someone else connected that he was a Padres fan. There are so many ways that people can relate or connect to us that we really don't expect or anticipate. And including those personal details about you might actually help people connect further. So I encourage you to be yourself in these profiles. I also highly recommend you use friendly and clear writing. By that, I mean that it should be approachable to a general audience. Any jargon that you use should be defined or explained or maybe linked to the Wikipedia page. Make it easy for people who don't know a lot about what you do to learn more. That's what makes a good dynamic profile or a good dynamic website. It's that allows people to engage with you, allows people to learn more about you, and helps them get in touch when they want to. So I hope you learned a lot from this. Please let me know if you have any further questions. For most people, I honestly think LinkedIn is going to be the best choice. LinkedIn really allows you to have a dynamic profile, allows you to share pretty much all the information most professors and scientists say that they'd like to. Now, it's not the best place to connect with maybe other researchers when it comes to specifically sharing your new research. Something like ResearchGate or Google Scholar can be more effective in that, but it's perfect for reaching a wide audience. It's perfect for the people who want to meet us at a conference. They just want to know a little bit more about us. It's perfect for editors when they're looking for someone to reach out to. It's perfect for collaborators when they're looking for more people to connect with. So these are ways that we can have our online profiles help them. So I encourage you to really think about if LinkedIn or a personal website is right for you. Thanks so much for joining me today. LinkedIn versus personal websites. This was a fun topic of conversation. If you have further questions, be sure to let me know in the comments below. I'll be answering them for the next few days. All right, this is my last YouTube Live until I'm in San Diego. We're moving at the end of next week, so I'm so excited to bring you a whole new lineup of content for 2021, and I'm going to get started organizing that in mid-February. So if you want to join me for a live conversation here on The Social Academic, be sure to reach out. My email is jennifer@theacademicdesigner.com, and you can find me on social media at Higher Ed PR. I'd love to chat with you, and love really doing this kind of live content for all of you. So please let me know if you'd like to join me. All right.